Welcome to 2D Mystery, where the darkest corners of mysterious cases are revealed. Woman Detective, in today's video, we will dig deep into the crime scene and dissect each testimony in one of the cases that has shaken the whole country for more than 2 decades. The mysterious death of little girl JonBenét Ramsey. Pushpin, why are there inexplicable traces of the crime scene? Pushpin, what are the contradictions in the parents' statements that make the public suspicious? Pushpin, is there something hidden right in the house of this famous family? Magnifying glass tilted left, prepare yourself for a journey of analysis that is thrilling, heart-stopping, and equally chilling. Back-end index pointing right, click subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any mysterious cases with 2D Mystery. In the early morning hours of December 26, 1996, Boulder, Colorado, was blanketed in a thin layer of post-Christmas snow. In a luxurious mansion on a quiet street, a brutal murder had taken place. But strangely, no one heard a cry for help. There were no obvious signs of forced entry, and all clues led back to inside the house. JonBenét Ramsey, a beautiful 6-year-old girl, was found dead in her family's basement. Her tiny body had been bound, wrapped in rope, gagged with duct tape, and her head had been beaten so hard that her skull was fractured. But what shocked everyone was not just the manner of her death, but the circumstances surrounding her death. An unusually long ransom note left in the house, no signs of forced entry, and it all started with a strange phone call from her mother, Patsy Ramsey. Was this a kidnapping gone wrong? Or is it an elaborate drama staged by the people involved? Analysis of the house scene, from the traces and evidence to the structure of the basement, from the voice in the 911 call to the ballpoint pen used to write the letter, opens up a series of confusing contradictions. Each detail, no matter how small, seems to bring us closer to the truth or drag us deeper into the maze of suspicion. The mansion in the midwinter night, stage for a haunting play. Snowflake, Boulder, Colorado, Christmas Eve 1996. A light snowfall covers the roofs. Warm yellow lights shine through the glass windows. A peaceful night, eerie. But something is wrong. A crime has just been born in the silence. House opening scene, 755 15th Street. The house sits quietly among the pine trees in an upscale neighborhood of Boulder City. With 15 rooms, 4 floors, and a facade decorated in a classic European style, the Ramsey mansion is home to a family considered perfect, successful, wealthy, famous. In the eyes of the neighbors, the mansion is a symbol of stability and dreams. The Christmas lights are still sparkling. The carefully wrapped gifts are placed under the Christmas tree in the living room. But inside that house, a creepy mystery is brewing. Christmas tree, Merry Christmas. Or is it the opening show? On December 25th, 1996, the Ramsey family, including Father John, Mother Patsy, son Burke, and 6-year-old daughter JonBenét, celebrated Christmas with friends and neighbors, had dinner, and exchanged gifts. Everything was strangely normal. But on that same evening, according to some later testimonies, Patsy showed unusual signs, tense, uncertain, as if she was hiding something. Some witnesses later said, Patsy wore the same clothes that night, and the next morning, as if she hadn't slept at all. Was that night not as peaceful as it seemed? Scroll notable details in the house plan. The basement, where JonBenét's body was later found, was a difficult-to-reach, dark, cluttered area that was often locked. The spiral staircase leading to the bedroom, where the strange ransom note was left on the morning of December 26th. The dining room and living room. Traces of the Christmas party, a perfect night, unless you look closely. The dissonance between the luxurious space and the terrible crime that was about to happen made the audience feel uneasy, as if they were stepping onto a stage where every detail was a prop for a ghost play. Magnifying glass tilted right, visual metaphor. The house is like a Pandora's box. Each room seems to hide a piece of the mystery. A staircase where the mother ran down early in the morning, screaming for her daughter. A dark corner in the basement, where the light never reached. A kitchen, where the phone was used to call the police at 5:52 a.m. The house is not simply a place to live. It is a silent witness, a psychological maze, a protagonist framed in the silence of bricks and stones. Girl JonBenét, little angel in the misty fog. JonBenét Ramsey, 6 years old, a child beauty queen with a series of titles, blonde hair like a Disney princess. But on that cold night, she became the central character of a tragedy. The last image of JonBenét remains, a video recording of her singing on the final night of the competition. Her bright smile, her big round eyes, and then gone. A wordless whisper. The final scene of the chapter is a distant view of the mansion. The snow is falling harder. There are no more lights. There is only darkness and the sound of the wind blowing through the pine trees. It seems like the house itself is trying to tell us something, but it is locked in silence. And so the stage is set. All the characters are in place. Only one thing is missing. Who wrote this script? The ransom note left on the mansion's main staircase was one of the most unusual aspects of the case. At 2.5 pages long, it was unlike any ransom note the FBI had ever collected. The writer demanded $118,000, an uncanny match for John Ramsey's reward that year. The writing had a strange, cinematic tone, both threatening and taunting. The police and text analysts were left with the big question: why would the kidnapper linger long enough in the house to write such a long letter? Why did the pen and paper belong to the Ramsey family? We'll decipher the letter like a cipher, from the language, the structure, the handwriting errors, to the psychological traces of the writer. What can each paragraph, each sentence, reveal about the killer? And who in the Ramsey family can emulate this style? The discovery, a ransom note like no other. When something doesn't make sense in a crime scene, it often means someone is trying to make it look like something it's not. The fateful morning, a strange call. Details. On the morning of December 26, 1996, Boulder police received a call at 5:52 a.m. from Patsy Ramsey. In a panicked voice, reporting that her daughter JonBenét had been kidnapped and a ransom note had been found on the stairs. But something didn't add up. Why was Patsy the first to wake up and accidentally discover the note? Why did she call 911 immediately without checking the child's room or the basement? And why was the note nearly 3 pages long? At the time, no one knew they were facing one of the strangest pieces of evidence in American criminal history. A strange letter, too long, too detailed, too unreal. Details. The ransom note was 2.5 pages long, handwritten, with an unusually complex language style, demanding $118,000, matching John Ramsey's recent bounty. The language was reminiscent of action movies like Speed, Dirty Harry, Ransom, using an unusual phrase, small foreign faction, an extremely difficult to identify and never heard of group. The handwriting was not that of a hasty person, but rather that of someone who had time to set up. Unusual details. The writing paper and pen belonged to the Ramsey house itself. There were no signs of a break-in, no footprints in the snow. Hypothesis. Could the letter be a diversion, intended to simulate a kidnapping to hide a darker truth? Inconsistencies in behavior. Details. Patsy Ramsey said she woke up early to pack for the flight, went downstairs, and discovered the letter. But the luggage had been prepared the day before. She wore the same clothes she wore the night before to bed. Not the behavior of a normal person going to bed. John Ramsey immediately searched the house, not leaving the scene intact, but going straight to the basement, where the body was found a few hours later. Were they looking for their daughter, or were they leading the investigation? Handwriting analysis, Patsy under a microscope. Details. Forensic handwriting experts were called in. The results were startling. Patsy Ramsey was not ruled out as a suspect in the letter. Some of the handwriting matches eerily, but not enough to be 100% certain. However, when a letter is paired with the tone of Patsy's old writings, the tone is uncannily similar. Flowery, cinematic, emotionally overwrought. Don't try to grow a brain, John. From a letter, sounds more like a scripted line than the actual kidnapper's language. The letter, evidence or a coded confession? Details. Investigators begin to ask the terrifying question: what if there was no kidnapper at all? The letter could be an excuse, a desperate message in a panic. Or worse, a retelling of the story in a layer of lies? From here, the case shifts from kidnapping to suspicion of a setup, and all eyes turn to the victim's family. 9/11, hello. This is Patsy Ramsey. My daughter has been kidnapped. She is no longer here. That was the opening line of the fateful call Patsy Ramsey made in the early hours of the morning. However, when the tape was processed with amplification and noise-canceling technology, it was believed that the voices of John Ramsey and his son Burke Ramsey were heard at the end, after Patsy thought she had hung up. The hurried whispers, seemingly at odds with the initial panic. One could hear the phrase, "What did you do?" or "We're not talking to you." These passages raise the question, were they hiding something from the start? In this chapter, we will analyze the sound second by second, examining hypotheses, comparing it with experts in linguistics, criminal psychology, and acoustics. What can each frequency, each pitch of the voice reveal that the human ear cannot hear? The basement scene, where truth hides in shadows. In most cases, a body tells its story. But here, the silence was deafening. The forgotten basement, a strange place in a perfect house. Details. The Ramsey family home is a large, luxurious mansion, decorated perfectly for the Christmas holidays. But the basement, a dark, cold, and cluttered space, holds the most terrifying truth. The basement is a maze of rooms. A small, locked, dark, windowless room, the wine cellar, where JonBenét's body was found. There was no sign of forced entry. No one from the initial search party entered. Why would a kidnapper hide a body in the victim's own house and in such a secluded place? Shocking discovery. John Ramsey finds his daughter. Details. At around 1 p.m., John Ramsey left the crime scene control area without permission, went straight into the basement, and was the one who discovered JonBenét's body. He picked up his daughter, carried her upstairs, and seriously disrupted the scene. The body was placed on the floor, wearing a white nightgown, hands tied, mouth taped, and there were signs of strangulation with a rope around the neck. Unusual points. No one knows why John entered that room. No random search. Why did the police let him roam the house freely when this was a suspected kidnapping scene? Traces on the body, unanswered questions. Details. The autopsy revealed JonBenét suffered severe head trauma, but died of strangulation. There were signs of sexual assault, but it was unclear whether it was before or after death. A string rope was strangled around the neck in a garrote style, an uncommon technique and difficult for children or untrained women to perform. Chilling details. Animal hair and unidentified fabric fibers on the child's body. No signs of struggle, as if the victim had been unconscious before being strangled. Missing traces. The scene is not perfect, but not real either. Details. The investigation of the scene shows no strange footprints in the snow outside the door. No signs of broken windows. However, the house shows signs of being partially cleaned, but not thoroughly. The biggest contradiction. A kidnapping that left no body. A murder that left no obvious murder weapon. And the family, instead of panicking, reacted strangely. Crying without tears, the phone dropped at the right time, no inquiry about the autopsy results. The creepy theory. The crime took place right in the home. Details. Investigators began to suspect. Was this not a break-in, but an accident staged as a kidnapping? The room where JonBenet was found was unknown to anyone outside the home. The strangulation line was elaborate, as if prepared. The presence of jewelry, changes of clothing, signs of local cleaning, suggesting a performance after the incident. The killer may not have left the house, because they never had to. JonBenet was found in the basement, a secluded room in the sprawling mansion, one that even many of her family members did not frequent. The basement showed no signs of forced entry, and a blanket had been gently draped over her. The police had failed to properly cordon off the scene when they entered. John Ramsey, JonBenet's father, was the one who discovered his daughter's body and carried her upstairs, inadvertently disturbing the scene. But the bigger question is, why did he go straight to this room? Was it a father's hunch or a repressed memory? This chapter will reconstruct the scene visually. analyzing the actions of the family members, the location of the body, the tools of the crime, and the traces on the floor and doors. The hair, the blood, the strangulation line, the tape, all add up to a gruesome but deeply confusing picture. The tangled investigation, clues ignored, truth distorted. Was it incompetence, or was someone pulling the strings? First day of investigation, unforgivable mistakes. Detailed content. From the early morning of December 26th, the response of the Boulder, Colorado police was criticized by many experts as unprofessional and weak. The scene was not completely sealed off, allowing relatives and friends to freely move around the house. The entire basement was not checked immediately after receiving the report of the child missing. Only when John Ramsey suddenly went down did he discover the body. Before noon, many objects were touched, the body was moved, clothes changed, all traces were destroyed. This wasn't just carelessness. It looked like someone didn't want the truth to survive the morning. The Ramsey family testimony changes over time. Details. The accounts of three members, John, Patsy, and Burke, are inconsistent. Patsy said she found a ransom note on the stairs, but it was written on paper from the house and a family pen. Burke, the 9-year-old boy, was not interviewed privately at first. Then in several video recordings in 1998, he showed strange behavior that contradicted his parents' descriptions. The big question, why didn't a wealthy family do everything they could to cooperate with the investigation? The suspicious detail. They hired lawyers immediately. They didn't allow police to interview each of them privately until months later. The ransom note. Fake or real? Details. The ransom note was 2.5 pages long, which is extremely unusual for kidnapping, demanding exactly $118,000, the same amount of money John had received from his previous employer. The writing style is sometimes like a terrorist, sometimes like an action movie, like Speed or Dirty Harry. The forensic experts believe the letter was written right at home, on the family's own paper and pen. A real kidnapper doesn't linger to write a novel in your kitchen. Misdirected leads. Details. The Boulder police seem to be pulled in two opposite directions. The family is the culprit because there is no sign of a break-in. The scene is cleaned up. A stranger breaks in at night due to public and press pressure. The result, no one is arrested. All the important evidence is processed too late. The FBI lab finds strange DNA but cannot identify the identity, making the case even more confusing. The evidence said one thing, the narrative said another, and the truth was fading fast. The media, the invisible judge. Details. The JonBenét case became a national media spectacle. Sensational news reports, unfounded speculation, and public denunciations of the Ramsey family on television. Some journalists led the story as if writing a detective novel rather than reporting it. Meanwhile, forensic data, crime scene records, and detailed testimony were never fully released. Result: the truth was buried under layers of rumors. The public believed in the verdict handed down by public opinion, not the court. The court of public opinion had made its ruling, long before the evidence could speak. After JonBenét's death, the Ramseys chose to not cooperate fully with the police in the early days. They hired lawyers, media advisors, and avoided direct dialogue with investigators for weeks. Each family member's testimony was unusual in many ways. Patsy said she woke up early to prepare for the trip, found the letter, and called the police. John said he didn't know anything until his wife called. Burke, the 9-year-old son, seemed not to be awakened by anything. But in subsequent interviews, their eyes, gestures, and incoherent sentences raised suspicion. We'll analyze each of their statements, not just the content, but also the tone, expressions, body language, and what they didn't say. Leading lie detector experts have asked, were they protecting someone, or were they part of the buried truth? Shadows of mystery, the unsolved puzzle, and lingering questions. In the silence left behind, what secrets still whisper in the dark? Unsolved mysteries, detailed content. Although the case has gone through decades of investigation and analysis, a series of questions remain unanswered. Who was the real culprit? Family or stranger? Why were important traces damaged or disappeared? Is the blackmail letter fake or real, and who wrote it? Is there an intervention of outside forces to hide the truth? Many experts believe that this case is not just a simple murder, but also a game of power, cover-up, and manipulation of information. DNA mystery, the puzzle that cannot be arranged. Detailed content. One of the most important clues is the unidentified DNA sample found at the scene. The DNA was thoroughly tested by the FBI, but did not match any family members or suspect lists. Recent DNA retests have yet to reveal any new clues. The presence of this DNA has raised the hypothesis of an outsider, or even the intervention of someone intentionally leaving traces to mislead. The Ramsey family silence. Detailed content. After years of suspicion, the Ramsey family chose to remain silent, away from the media and investigations. They hired a strong legal team to protect their reputation. The public and experts continue to debate whether the family cooperated or concealed. The silence creates a thick layer of mystery, making justice even more obscure. Alternative theories, unproven scenarios. Details. Over the years, many different theories have been proposed. A stranger broke in from outside, possibly an acquaintance or a pervert. A family tragedy scenario involving a dispute, financial pressure, or a shocking secret. A case committed by a group of people to hide something bigger. Each theory has its strengths and weaknesses, but none has been clearly proven. JonBenét's legacy, remembering and learning. Details. JonBenét Ramsey is not only a name in crime history, but also a symbol of enduring pain and mystery. Her story changed the way child cases are investigated, raises questions about professionalism and ethics in policing, journalism, and law, sparks a deep conversation about truth, justice, and respect for victims. Fire the End, a story that never ends. JonBenét's case remains a haunting enigma, an unfinished story echoing through decades. The truth, obscured by shadows and whispers, reminds us that some mysteries resist closure. What happened in that Colorado home? Who holds the key to unlocking this dark puzzle? Perhaps one day, the silence will break,